So, Spider-Man 2 just released, and I realized that I never played Miles Morales. I also haven't played the first Spider-Man game since I beat it when it first released in 2018, so I figured it's only right that I get both games on PC, 100% them before we dive right into Spider-Man 2. And yes, 100% includes all achievements and all DLC achievements attached to the first game, as I've never played those either. And no, this isn't going to be a story recap for the first game, simply just going to be rapidly going through it to get all the achievements and 100%ing it, because I've already played it twice and I just want to play Miles Morales before I play the second game. And we have a lot to get to, so I'm gonna be moving pretty fast. Now let's go. Starting out, we select the hardest difficulty because this game really isn't all that difficult to begin with. We're then introduced to the main man, Peter Parker, and his scientific prowess before we're getting tossed right into the action, proving to be one of the best opening sequences in gaming. Honestly, I freaking loved this game when it first came out. This opening sequence really got me bricked up. We head to the first mission to take out Fisk and his goons before ultimately getting the first achievement.
Kingpin is heading to prison. The end of an era.
Immediately after that, I swing around the city a little bit and I head over to pay my respects to Uncle Ben and gather another achievement. I then quickly prove to be the Spider-Man of the people that I am and greet 10 city-goers before heading over to Doc Ock. After that, we're introduced to the crime beacons, aka the map markers, before we take on our first few crimes and we get another achievement for 10 perfect dodges. We then find the first of many backpacks before we collect 5 more quickly for another easy achievement. After that, we grab the Air Tricks perk, and then we immediately do a combo to grab another easy achievement and get it out of the way. After that, we gather up a few more easy miscellaneous achievements before taking on the first Fisk base, and I ended up getting an achievement I wasn't planning on. We then go grab some more miscellaneous achievements before we finally sync up all the surveillance towers, and then I collect all the backpacks around the city. It was then time for me to start my first side mission before taking on a few more Fisk hideouts where I happened to get the 100 combo and then I just kept it moving. I then decided as a fellow New Yorker myself that it's only right that I go on a little sightseeing tour to get that out of the way, so I take all the pictures and gather yet another achievement. I then head back out and about to complete a few more side missions and some more thug crimes before getting the first combat benchmark achievement. Then it's time for the first boring Mary Jane mission, and after that, I begin to do more Spider-Manning about and stealthily take out some more goons in Fisk hideouts before getting 75 stealth takedowns and completing all the hideout objectives. We then have a lovely conversation with Martin Lee, and then we're off to do more Spidey stuff. We help out a wannabe Spidey before Osborn begins turning Doc Ock into the villain we all know and love, and then we head out for another mission where we assist Miles' dad before we make our way over the final Fisk hideout and put them out of business for good, baby. I then go take on Shocker for the very first time before getting my New Yorker on and taking a couple nice subway rides. Everyone loves the New York City subway, right? It's just a happy place. We keep on Spider-Manning about, and then we collect the first Black Cat collectible. And after the demons show up and kill Miles' dad in an attack, we are done with Act 1. After Act 1 completes, I Spider-Man about for a little bit longer before crafting 15 upgrades. I fully complete all of Black Cat's objectives and then I track her down, and then I even make myself useful around the neighborhood by helping my friend Howard find all of his little pigeon friends. After that, I max out my combat benchmark before getting introduced to the Taskmaster and all his challenges. I rip a bunch of his challenges before heading back to Doc's to complete all optional projects. I head out and about around town to fight more crime, and I actually complete 10 vehicle takedowns before I go out and I complete all the corrupted student side missions. I then make my way on over to the final Tombstone mission before taking him down and then going on to complete all the research stations that Harry left behind. I then go and complete my first Ninja Stealth Challenge before completing every single Taskmaster challenge that there is to offer around the city, and then it's time to take on the Taskmaster himself, and we make quick work of him. I then go and finish up the last remaining demon warehouses that I had to get those right out of the way, and then I go and complete every single side mission that the game has to offer. And then after that, I go and fight a little bit more crime before I knock 10 pairs of enemies together with the trip mines, and then it's time for me to go and complete Act 2 and the 6th kick Peter Parker's ass. We quickly rally after the ass kicking, and then we gather enough skill points to finish up the skill tree. After that, I make quick work of all the Sable outposts. I then make quick work of all the prisoner outposts. I purchase all the main game suits required. I then 100% complete a district in the city before I go on and fully upgrade all my gadgets. After getting all my upgrades, it was only a matter of time before I 100% every district in the city, and after that, the only achievements left in the main game were to complete the final story missions. So I go out and I first make quick work of Electro and Vulture, I then head right back out for the final Scorpion and Rhino battle, and I make quick work of them locking them up in a storage container together, and then it's finally time to take on Martin Lee. And to be honest, this Martin Lee fight is probably my favorite fight in the entire game. So we savor every moment of it, and we put him down. And after Martin Lee, it's finally time for the big dog himself, Doc Ock. But to be honest, I felt like they could have did a little bit more with it, made it a little bit more exciting and climactic, but all in all, it was a great ending to the game. And I still remember when I first saw this after credits scene and I immediately needed the second game, which is why I'm so excited to get going on the next 2 games. And just like that, we are done with all main story achievements. And now it's time for us to get going on all these DLC achievements, so let's get started. Now the first DLC opens right up into a mission where upon completing it, you get the first achievement. After that, I just continued on with the story and began fighting crime to 100% district, and then I began unlocking all the activities around the city so that I can begin 100%ing all those. I complete all the screwball missions around the city, and then it's time for me to complete another story mission. Next up, I have an epic chase sequence with the Black Cat, ultimately leading to another achievement, before it's time for another mission leading to another mission achievement. And because this is the final mission of the first DLC, we get an achievement for completing this last mission, as well as getting an achievement for 100%ing the entire city. Now, on to DLC 2. Like the first DLC, Part 2 opens right up with another mission, as well as the most violent cutscene that the game has ever shown. So after breaking in and saving Yuri, you get first achievement. After that, I do some more Spider-Manning about the city, complete more crimes, and then I'm introduced to the most annoying enemies in the entire DLC, and after completing that mission, you get yet another achievement. After that, my spidey senses kept tingling, so I continued fighting more crime around the city until I ultimately 100%ed my first district. And after a whole bunch more Spider-Manning about the city, it was finally time for me to take on the last screwball mission yet again for this DLC. And don't hold your breath because there's another screwball section in the next DLC. Now because I was doing so much Spider-Manning about before, I had only one more Hammerhead front left to take down before it was time for the final mission, and then this DLC was finito. So I put down the final Hammerhead front, and we are one achievement closer, baby. After that, I put on this sick new suit I got, and then it was finally time to finish up this DLC. So we head to the final mission. We take down Hammerhead and his goons, and because we already 100%ed the city before finishing this mission, we get 2 achievements, and we are done with this DLC, baby. Finally on to the final DLC. The final DLC starts you out right again in a mission where you're introduced right away to by far the worst enemies in the entire game. I mean, these guys absolutely suck. But as long as you utilize your gadgets, you really shouldn't have any problem putting them down. And after a little fight with Sable, and she delivers this amazing one-liner.
I am good at what I do. But I am not a guy.
You have your first achievement. I'm then yet again introduced to more screwball objectives, and I make sure to get those done immediately because I'm so sick and tired of them. They are just so tedious and boring. After that, I complete a mission where you find out that Yuri murdered a murderer, and then you get yet another achievement. It's then time for another story mission where you help an actually good Sable agent, and he gives you a big old hug, and you get yet another achievement. What a nice guy he was. It's then time to finally put an end to Screwball's shenanigans, and we take her down for good, baby. Now we are finally ready for the last mission in all of the DLCs. And after you put down Hammerhead for what seems like the final time, you are met with this awesome after credits scene where it leads right into Miles Morales. And then the last 2 DLC achievements. Now the only thing left to do was to create a new game plus, set the difficulty to ultimate now that we just unlocked it, and complete this playthrough to the end to get the final 2 achievements. And because I still got 2 games to get to, I was rushing as fast as I could. But I powered through, and just like that, we have 100% complete all achievements in Spider-Man Remastered. And it is finally time to take on Miles Morales. Let's get it. Miles Morales, man. Where do I begin? This game was so good. Alright, let's get to it. So again, man, this game starts off right away into the action, right after you get introduced to our main man, Miles, and we are put into a mission with Peter. And after playing for only a few minutes, I immediately realized something. Miles just has so much more Spidey swagger about him, it's just such a breath of fresh air, honestly. We then link up with Pete before helping with the prisoner transportation, which we all obviously know is going to go perfectly fine, because nothing bad ever happens in these situations. So surprisingly, things don't go as planned, and then it's revealed that they were actually just transporting our big teddy bear friend Rhino, so it's not that bad, right? Rhino tries to escape, and in the process, he frees a bunch of convicts, and then the game begins. So I begin the first fight, and I immediately have to change my FOV, because if I have one complaint from the PlayStation versions of these games, it is that they are just way too zoomed in camera-wise. After that, it's time to take on all the escaped convicts, before we go and take on Rhino in a nice epic New York City chase Spider-Man style. And if you're anything like me, you went into this game not fully knowing all the achievements at hand, so during this chase there's a pretty missable achievement when you and Rhino are running through the mall, and I was just trying to do what the game told me to do and avoid as many obstacles as possible, when in reality, you actually want to hit at least 15 to get an achievement. But thankfully, there's actually an achievement just for riding Rhino through the mall in general, so on New Game Plus, we'll go back and get the one where we have to hit all the objects. Moving on. The chase then continues back on the New York City streets, where we ask Rhino nicely to look both ways before crossing the street, and he gets very angry and decides to heat things up a bit. Miles is then exploded into the sky while Pete hangs on for dear life, before more convicts show up with rocket launchers for some reason. And then Miles points out that the police officers actually had the rocket launchers, which makes no sense, but I guess if you live in a Spider-Man world and there's all this stuff and a giant rhinoceros man around, the police officers should probably carry around rocket launchers. So we beat up all of the convicts before Rhino knocks out Spider-Man, aka Peter Parker, and then he awakens a new ability within Miles. It's then time for Miles to take on Rhino all by himself. So the fight ensues, and it's the first boss battle of the game. And it's nothing too difficult, so using your new Venom abilities, you should have no problem putting Rhino down pretty easily. You're then introduced to Simon Krieger from Roxxon Labs, and he tells you that he will take Rhino in himself. Very normal, right? No, let's not use the police, let's use this guy we just met. Makes sense. We then have a quick rendezvous with Pete, eat some pizza, and he tells us that he's about to take a trip to Europe for a little bit, and he's leaving the protection of New York City all up to us. He then gives us a little Christmas gift early, and we give our friend Genki a call to go open it with him in the park, and after opening the new suit that Pete has just gifted us, we get another achievement. I then go and take on one of the training programs Pete left behind, before it's time to go and do another main mission, where we're first introduced to one of the main groups of bad guys, the Underground. So we take them out, try and figure out why they're here, and then Roxanne Security shows up, and we head home for Christmas dinner. At dinner, we're introduced to Miles' mom, as well as meeting one of his old friends, who just so happens to be tinkering with his doorbell when you first meet her. I wonder if that foreshadows anything. We head out the next day to do more Spidey stuffs, and Genki introduces us to the new Friendly Neighborhood app he created, which shows us all activities going on around the city. And shortly after he shows us the app, we get our first request. So we head on out to assist the train worker that asked for our help, and he tells us that the train system is all messed up and that the tracks are not aligned, so he needs our help to fix everything. Oh, and the train worker just so happens to be Miles' uncle who just got out of prison. After some Spidey investigating, you actually discover that the Underground is the culprit for all the railway problems, and you follow directions from your uncle going to different locations trying to take them out as they mess with certain relays. So we beat up all the Underground fighters, giving them that 1-2 Spider-Man punch, and then we solve a little train puzzle before ultimately finishing up the mission. And upon completing the mission, Uncle Aaron decides to tell us that he actually has a nice little gift for us for helping him out, so we head on over to him to grab it. Shortly after that, Uncle Aaron calls us right back, and he tells us that the Underground has shown up and they're planting bombs all around a train platform and that he needs our help immediately. So we hustle on over there to help out. So after a little bit of Spider-Man fighting, we knock out the last goon, and then we get an achievement for finally fixing the train system. I then get a suit mod for another quick achievement. We then head back on over to Uncle Aaron to collect our gift, where he hands us a subway card for free subway rides for an entire year, with Miles' real name on it, meaning that he actually knew Miles was Spider-Man all along. So after a little bit of a chat with our uncle, we head back out. After that, we get a call from our friend Finn to hang out, but before we make our way on over to her, I decide to fight a little bit more crime around the city before I go and I help a local small business owner. The bodega owner informs me that he's recently been robbed, and they even stole his cat, who just happens to be named Spider-Man as well. And with my no Spider-Man left behind mentality, we begin our investigation. We head on over to a local power plant where the criminals are believed to be, and we begin making our way around the building. Now, of course, as we go around through the power plant, we have to take out a bunch of criminals, and eventually we find our feline friend. So we take Spider-Man home to his papa, and then we have the cutest cutscene in the entire game. It was also during this cutscene that I realized I would absolutely die for this cat. It was then time to help out with some more crime around the city, so I go and I stop a couple car thieves, and I return the car back to its rightful owner. I get a new suit, and then it's time for some more training programs. I begin my first traversal challenge and I actually get an achievement for Spectacular Better. Immediately after that, I buy my first visor mod, and then I head out to do another combat challenge. And again, after this challenge, we get yet another achievement. It's then time for some more Spider-Manning about, and I head out to fight some more crime, and during a feast truck robbery, I find myself in a nice little rhythm, and I actually get the 100 combo achievement. After a quick suit change, I notice this big statue on my radar, so I make my way on over to it, only to realize that it's the man himself, Stan Lee. Thanks for everything, Stan. We love you. We then finally make our way on over to Finn, where she introduces us to the time capsules around the city, before we make our way over to Miles' mom's rally. And in normal Spider-Man fashion, the rally is attacked and it's up to us to stop the underground. During the fight, we learn that this was merely just a distraction, and that the real objective of the underground was to steal a cargo vessel from Roxxon currently being transported across a bridge, so we make our way over there immediately. After a little tussle with the underground and the Tinkerer, we learn that they're there for a new form of fuel that Roxxon's been developing, so we jump right into action trying to stop them. It's then revealed to us that the Tinkerer is actually our old friend Finn, and after a little tussle with her, we cause a minor, massive explosion, and it's up to us to stop this bridge from completely falling apart and killing everybody on top of it. So after a few movie-esque QTEs, we save everybody on the bridge, and we get a nice achievement. We then begin investigating what led Finn to become the Tinkerer, and in that process it leads us to one of her old bases, where we discover she lost a cell phone in a Roxxon lab that contains way more information, so we head there to try to retrieve it, and on the way there we're stopped by the Prowler, who reveals himself to us as Uncle Aaron. And after a little chat, he decides to help us out with our investigation. After finding the cell phone, we fight our way throughout the rest of the facility, with the help of our Uncle Aaron, and then we escape. After another little chat with Uncle Aaron, it's time for another achievement. After that, it's finally time we go and meet up with Finn, and during our little soiree, she reveals to us that she's actually the Tinkerer herself, and Miles, being the quick thinker that he is, he asks her to let him join the gang, and she asks him to pass a test, and because he's Spider-Man, he passes with flying colors, gaining access to the underground via Finn. After gaining access to the underground base, we quickly tell Finn that we have somewhere to be, and then we change in our Spidey suit, and then it's time for action. And of course, in typical Spider-Man fashion, the investigation leads to a couple fights, and during one of these fights I actually nab myself another achievement, and then shortly after finishing the fight, the mission ends and I get yet another achievement. Before continuing the investigation with Finn in the underground, I go and I pay my respect to Miles' dad. Immediately after that, I go to grab a time capsule located on a boat, and I happen to get an achievement for riding the boat. We then continue our investigation, stealthily taking out bad guys, and I actually get 25 wall takedowns. We continue stealthing about, and then we end up getting 100 stealth takedowns. Eventually, the Tinkerer joins the party, and we have a little fight, and then we have a nice chase sequence through New York City, and she inevitably kicks Miles' ass, leaving him to reveal himself in a last-ditch effort to save himself, and then we get an achievement for completing that sequence. After that, I immediately head back out to complete a stealth challenge, grabbing myself yet another achievement. After that, I continue Spider-Manning about, helping any and all citizens that need help around the city, including this window cleaner who actually got stuck on the side of a building. And I honestly can't imagine a more miserable hell just being stuck dangling on the side of a skyscraper. So you know, I obviously had to help the homie out.
It was no trouble. Really.
After that, I continue investigating more criminals around the city, and it just so happens that it was time for me to get the 50 camouflage takedown achievement. After that, we head on over to the final investigation, where we actually discover that Wilson Fisk was behind it the entire time, and to be honest with you, it makes perfect sense. And after that, we get an achievement for uncovering the criminal conspiracy in Harlem. Next up, we make our way over to our main man Howard, because he's having some more problems with his pigeons, and he needs a little bit of Spidey assistance. And after tracking down his pigeons, you'll discover that a group of criminals are actually using his pigeons for communication, which is honestly pretty creative, but because they're our boy Howard's pigeons, we gotta put the guys down. After that, we hit the neighborhood again, fighting crime and taking out some more underground bases. I help a city crane worker de-ice his crane, and almost kill a bunch of people in the process, but it's okay, don't worry, nobody saw anything. I also thought this quick little part was very funny because it just gave me Resident Evil 5 vibes of Chris Redfield punching the boulder. After that, I investigate some missing toys from feast donations, which obviously leads me to a group of criminals, so I have to take every single person out, as well as saving all the toys in the process. So I helped this feast delivery driver get on his merry way, and then after that, the neighborhood hooked me up with something really, really nice, gave me a new suit, and then I got an achievement for helping out everybody on the Spider-Man app. And unfortunately after that, I decided to take a little break, And when I came back to record some more, I made the rookie mistake of not actually hitting record. And I got a bunch of achievements during that session, so let's just run through those right now. I got the Crime Master achievement for completing all bonus objectives for every crime type. I got Up and Over for performing a Venom jump, then a Venom dash on one single enemy. I got Trapped for defeating 50 enemies with the remote mine gadget. I got Urban Explorers for collecting all of the time capsules. I got Spider-Man Trading Complete for completing every single Spider-Man trading challenge. I got Pete's First Villain, which you get for completing the final training challenge test. I got Underground done, which means you shut down all underground hideouts. I got Kit Bash, crafting 10 upgrades. From the Rafters, performing 25 ceiling takedowns. Never Saw It Coming, complete an enemy base without being detected. Under Their Noses, shutting down all Roxxon labs. JJJ would be proud by applying a sticker in photo mode and customizing the lighting, can't forget the lighting, as well as Salvager for opening all underground caches, Deep Cuts for collecting all the sound samples from Uncle Aaron, as well as Exploding Bulldozer for when you and Finn are chatting and you get attacked by Rhino and you have to take him down, and then finally, Family Drama when you have to take out Uncle Aaron, aka the Prowler, as he tries to stop you from going after Roxxon. And you can see what I mean. I got a lot during that session, and I was so mad when I realized I did not hit record. You have no idea. I was fuming. I was so angry. But it's okay. Let's keep it moving. And after that little fiasco, we were basically in endgame territory, and all that was really left for me was to finish up the main story, as well as do some side content in the end. So I went ahead and got going on finishing up the last few missions. I head on over to the Oscorp Science Center where Finn and the Underground are hiding. I take out all the guards outside before solving a puzzle to enter the building, and then it's time for a nice trip down memory lane for Miles as he has a flashback when he enters the Science Center. Shortly after you begin exploring during the flashback, you're met with this little rocket minigame, where if you beat Finn, you get yet another achievement. You also bump into a nice familiar face during the flashback. After Miles snaps out of his flashback sequence, we're immediately attacked by Finn, aka the Tinkerer. We get an achievement for having the flashback sequence, and then it's time to fight bad guys as Finn escapes, and she sends the Underground after us. On our way to the final showdown at Roxxon Labs, we're fighting a whole lot of Roxxon agents as well as underground people throughout the city streets, and it's just a whole mess throughout New York. After taking out all the bad guys, you try to make a quick plan with Genki and your mom, before Finn ultimately sets off the bomb, and it's time for you to jump into action. And right before you're about to jump into action, a knocked out Roxxon agent wakes up and is about to shoot you with his gun, just before Uncle Aaron, aka the Prowler, comes and saves the day. Finally, it is time for the final showdown against Finn. So we meet up at Roxxon Labs where she's about to set off the chain reaction, and then it's time for an epic fight Spider-Man style. And at the end of the fight, we make Finn realize her bad actions. She apologizes to us, but it's ultimately too late, at least we think so. We don't really know what happens with Finn. They kind of just allude to her dying, but we don't really know. Miles saves the day, and then that's that, baby. After all's said and done, Miles' mom and a bunch of other city-goers help Miles put his mask on and hide his identity, and then we are in endgame territory. We get an achievement for saving Harlem, and then it's time for a nice little rendezvous with Pete as he's finally back from his trip. After that, we're met with a little scene that's obviously setting up for Spider-Man 2, and then it's time for this final after-credit scene featuring Osborn and what's only believed to be Venom. It was then time for some endgame stuff, so I scrolled through the entire social app, getting another achievement. I then move on to getting the best suit in the game, like, look, it's not even close, this is the best suit in the entire game, before I moved on to getting all the postcards that Miles' dad left behind for him. And after collecting all the postcards, you get 2 achievements for collecting them, as well as 100%ing all the districts. And with that, it's time to start a New Game Plus run to get any final achievements, as well as a few that I missed. Immediately after starting New Game Plus, I paused the game, and I purchased all remaining suits getting yet another achievement, before moving on to taking on Rhino, and making sure that I knocked down at least 15 objects in the mall, getting yet another achievement that I missed earlier on. I continue with my New Game Plus playthrough, defeating over 100 enemies with Venom attacks, getting yet another achievement that I missed earlier on, just before unlocking every skill in the game, getting yet another achievement, and then finally it's only time for 2 more achievements, meaning all I have to do is complete this New Game Plus playthrough. So we keep pushing along, and just like that, man, we have officially 100% complete Miles Morales. Now, I thoroughly enjoyed Miles Morales. I really thought this game was a step up from the first one. It introduced a little more fluidity with the movements and stuff, and I am just now downright so excited for Spider-Man 2. It's time, man. Let's get it. So we boot up a new game, select spectacular mode obviously, and then we watch the recap, even though I literally just played the first 2 games, but I just can't get enough Spidey goodness. And after a nice little recap, the game begins, baby. The game first introduces us to Miles in school, along with his fresh new haircut, as well as Peter being introduced as his substitute teacher for the day. Not shortly after that, Sandman attacks New York City, and it's time for us to jump into action. And yet again, we are met with such an incredible opening sequence. Out of the 3 games, I think this was the best opening act, hands down. It's also during this sequence you get introduced to the little Sandman henchmen type creature things. I don't really know what to call them, but they play a pretty important role throughout the rest of the story. You're also introduced to the Spidey Wings, which is a new traversal ability that the Spider-Men have. Honestly, I love it. I love flying around all of New York City. It's so much fun. And after some intense fighting and an incredible battle, we take Sandman down and we capture him. Now after our first fight, we're met with a brief cutscene that introduces Kraven into the mix, and then we get our first trophy. It's then time to get the Spider-Man app back up and running so we can Spider-Man about and help all the people. So we help shoot a drone up into the sky and then we establish the connection again. After that, Miles discovers the first Sandman memory crystal, as well as the discovery that it's being protected by the little Sandman henchman people. So not really understanding what's going on, we take out the little henchman and get the crystal out. There's then a brief little part where Miles has to save J. Jonah Jameson, and honestly, it's just so funny. It's hilarious. After that, I switch over back to Peter, and as I'm swinging about the city, I'm trying to be a little stylish with it, mix in a couple moves, and I accidentally mess up completely, but I get a trophy for splatting on the ground. And not too long after that, I actually do get a trophy for being the most stylish Spider-Man in the city. I test out my new suit a little bit, and I quickly realize that Spider-Man with a cape just really does not look good at all. We then have a nice little cutscene with Pete and Mary Jane where we actually talk to Harry and discover everything that's been going on with him. Him and Pete break into the high school. Pete shows him his jumper and exactly why he chose science over sports. And then Harry offers Pete a job with the brand new lab that his dad just built for him. Like literally a brand new multi-bajillion-dollar lab that his dad just built for him, like within the last month. Absolutely bonkers. After that, Kraven enters New York City, and then we have another little cutscene with Miles and his mom, and I left a certain suit on Miles that proved yet again why Spider-Man should just not wear capes. I mean, just look how awkward he looks here. Definitely not a good style. So I immediately change my suit, and then it's time for Pete and Miles to go assist with a raft prisoner transportation. And if you've been paying attention at all in the previous 2 games, you'll know that something is about to go wrong. And just like clockwork, Kraven and the Hunters emerge, and they attack. And not only do they attack, they actually take Martin Lee and Scorpion as well, who are the ones being transported. So the Hunters escape with Scorpion and Lee, leaving the 2 Spider-Men questioning what the motives of the Hunters are, and then it's up to Miles and Peter to save the rest of the civilians. We then cut to Miles as we have a brief cutscene conversation with her Uncle Aaron, who was just released from prison. Shortly after that, we get yet another achievement for performing 30 air tricks. We then switch over back to Pete and we're introduced to Harry's new lab. And honestly, it's mind-boggling. It's truly insane. So insane that I had to Google what they estimate Norman Osborn's net worth to be, and Google says that his net worth is around $10 billion. And I know that that's a lot of money, but the way this dude spends money on technology and stuff like this, he's really only worth 10 billion. I would have expected him to be worth like 100 trillion or something like that. Like, goddamn. Like, Elon Musk doesn't even spend money like this guy does. It's crazy. After that, we begin investigating some hunter hideouts. And while we're doing a bunch of investigating, we actually get another trophy for stealth takedowns on a web line. It's then time for a side mission featuring Black Cat, where she wants to steal a magic wand from Doctor Strange. And after that, we're met with probably the coolest chase sequence in every single one of these Spider-Man games. This is one of the coolest sequences in the entire game, hands down. So we finally catch up to Black Cat, and then we listen to what she has to say, and then she lets us know that she's only using the wand so that she can get to somebody she loves and protect them, and we decide to help her out. But, just like clockwork, yet again, the hunters attack us, so we have to fight them off before ultimately sending Black Cat on her way and getting the magic wand back to its rightful owner. And after the wand is returned, you get a nice little Easter egg note. We then switch over to Peter, where he, Mary Jane, and Harry have a nice fun time at Coney Island, just before more hunters attack, and then it's revealed to us that Harry's new treatment actually has given him superpowers. Shortly after that, Pete decides it's time to take Harry on a test ride and takes him on a mission with him. Well, not really, he actually just followed us without us knowing, but it's okay because we end up saving a reformed tombstone from the hunters. Next up, the game introduces us to the new version of Mary Jane missions, and this time, instead of them completely being just boring and pointless, they're kind of just boring because they do add to the story this time around, when in the first game they kind of seemed like they just threw them in there to add time to the game. Now obviously, things don't go perfectly well for Mary Jane, and she ends up needing Spider-Man's help, so Peter brings Harry along with him to go take care of helping out Mary Jane. And while they go and help out Mary Jane, a fight ensues obviously, and Pete gets badly injured. Not understanding what his treatment suit is really doing to him, Harry tries to help Pete, and in doing that, his entire suit leaves his body and goes onto Pete, proving that it's Venom basically, let's be real. Kraven escapes, Pete gets really hangry, and then we get yet another trophy for getting the black suit. Next up, Pete meets Harry back at the lab where they try to take the suit off of him, and then the hunters attack him, leaving them no choice but to take everybody out, and ultimately leading to their entire lab being completely destroyed. But who really cares, because the way Norman Osborn spends money, there'll be a new lab up and running next month. Next up was everyone's favorite pigeon wrangler, Howard. Now, I'm not really going to talk about this mission too much. This is something you should experience for yourself. All I'm going to say is, I know your next adventure will be one for the books, Howard. You deserve it, man. We keep it moving, and then I decide to help out a bunch of students around Miles' school, and after we finish helping them all out, they decide to give us a little gift, being a brand new suit, and we get a trophy for accepting the gift. I then switch to Pete, and I go pay my respects to Aunt May's gravesite. I then decided it was time to fly like an eagle, and using only my web wings, I glided from the financial district all the way over to Astoria, Queens. Next up, we take Pete to investigate some fire cult with Yuri, and just because we won't let her kill the guy, she gets real angry at us and then she starts to fight us. And then, the guy escapes, obviously. She blames us, and yes, to be fair, it was 100% Pete's fault, he's an idiot, and she leaves angrily. It's then time yet again for another very wholesome side mission. I'm not gonna ruin this one yet again either, it's just so good you have to experience it for yourself. I then go hit a couple dinghies in a baseball field in Coney Island, and just for running the bases I get another trophy. And almost immediately after that, I go and I finish up all the photo opportunities around New York City. We keep on Spider-Manning about, and then I finally piece together all of the broken Sandman memories, and I learned that the hunters have been after him for a while, and that if we listened to him from the beginning, we might have been able to stop this attack from the beginning. And we get another trophy for this. And not too shortly after that, we get another trophy for collecting 10,000 tech parts, as well as getting the science trophy that Miles and Finn won together in Miles Morales. I then continue doing a whole bunch more Spider-Manning about as Miles, as I do a lot of the Mysterio challenges, eventually completing them all and getting a trophy for completing this side mission. It was then time to switch back over to Pete, where we have to look for Dr. Connors, aka the Lizard, who's being hunted right now by Kraven. So after we find him, there's a little bit of a tussle, a little bit of a chase through New York City. We eventually get him back to human form. He tells us that the suit is actually just an alien life form that's trying to kill us and take over the planet, and that we should take it off immediately. Pete does not like this suggestion, so he threatens him, and he escapes. And upon completing this mission, we get another trophy. I then continue to do a whole bunch more Spider-Manning about, and I actually complete all the requests around the city. Pete's suit then begins to take control of him as he goes berserk through New York City, and in an effort to stop him from Miles and MJ, Miles is actually captured by Kraven. As Miles, we wake up in a cell in what's believed to be the Hunter's main base of operations. We work our way through a couple groups of hunters, before ultimately leading us to this gladiator arena looking room where all the hunters are cheering us on and leading us down this hallway. It's then revealed that this is obviously just one big trap set up by Kraven to get Miles and Martin Lee to fight to the death. Now obviously Miles and Lee don't want to fight to the death, even though Miles really hates Lee for killing his dad in the second game. So the two of them duke it out a couple of rounds, eventually leading the battle into Miles' subconscious, where Miles ultimately wins and then helps Lee escape Kraven's trap afterwards. After saving Lee, the game switches us back over to Peter, and then we get yet another trophy. Pete gets word of Martin Lee, and then he goes to meet up with him for a chat where Martin tells him about Miles and that Kraven is keeping him captive, and Venomized Pete goes to save Miles. Now upon arrival, you go berserk mode with Pete, eventually leading up to the inevitable Kraven fight. So, Pete and Kraven have an epic showdown, and eventually, you take him down. Just before Pete lets Venom fully take him over and kill Kraven himself, Miles comes in to save the day, but ultimately pisses off Pete, aka Venom. After that, it's entirely up to Miles to try to save Pete from Venom. So after kicking his ass and using a bunch of loud sounds, Miles helps Pete break free from Venom and contain him. Miles and Pete then escape the area, have a quick rendezvous, and then we get another trophy for completing the mission. We then take the contained Venom, aka the symbiote, back over to Dr. Connors so he can run some tests in Oscorp Labs. And upon our arrival, a very sick Harry kind of attacks us and threatens us, freeing the symbiote, and then ultimately taking Venom for himself. We then get a segment of the game where we get to actually play as Venom, and it eventually leads back into another Kraven fight. And let's just say that Venom wins. A few cutscenes later, we get another trophy. After that, Miles and Peter have to save a bunch of city goers, including Genki and Miles' mom, from a venomed up subway line. So we beat up all the symbiote people and then get everybody to safety and then continue looking for Harry.
Find Harry.
And before we go on to find Harry, we actually Spider-Man about the city a bit more, and then we defeat 100 enemies with our spider arm abilities, before we go on to complete all Hunter bases, then eventually getting all Hunter data, as well as immediately after purchasing all gadget upgrades.
Get out of here.
We then switch back over to Miles to finish up another side storyline and get this awesome cutscene with him and his mom, and another trophy. And then, shortly after that, we complete the final tech stash left behind by Uncle Aaron. We then switch back over to Pete as he meets up with Yuri to go take down the fire cult, but unfortunately the leader gets away, but we get another trophy, as well as achieving the highest level. Harry then attacks MJ and turns her into a symbiote herself, which then leads to the best fight in the entire game, hands down. And after that whole turn of events, you get another trophy. Pete and Miles then go chase down Venom, and just as all hope seems lost and they're about to lose, Martin Lee jumps in and saves them. Miles and Martin Lee then head into Pete's subconscious to try and clear all the venom out of him. And obviously we get attacked, and there's a couple fights, and during one of these fights I get a trophy for using Miles' reverse flux ability. Shortly after that we get another trophy for defeating 100 enemies with his venom abilities. Miles and Lee eventually free Peter, and when they do so, they actually unlock his anti-venom abilities. Now immediately after unlocking these abilities, you get a trophy for using them. And not too shortly after that, I get another trophy for using Pete's symbiote abilities during his symbiote surge. After that, it was time to finish up all the symbiote nests and get those out of New York City, before immediately going and purchasing all suit tech upgrades. And shortly after that, I found the last spider bot, which let me 100% all the districts around the city. And after that, we were in endgame territory, so I made my way on over to the final mission.
Give me back my friend! We are your friend. Together.
And just like that, we get the trophy for completing the main story. Now, all that we have left is a few cleanup trophies. So, we immediately complete the final EMF experiment left behind by Harry, which enables us to purchase all suits. And then I go and solve the mystery of the missing spider bots, which led to an Easter egg that I honestly did not expect them to throw into this game, and it was so awesome. So we get that final trophy for solving the mystery. And just like that, we have the platinum trophy, man. Now all three of these games were an absolute blast to play, but if I had to pick a favorite one, I would definitely pick Spider-Man 2, simply because they just combined everything good from the previous games and simply elevated it to a different level. And just like the previous two games before it, Spider-Man 2 really left me excited for the next game to come, and I'm just really looking forward to what Insomniac has next. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me, man. I really appreciate anybody who stuck around till the end. You're an absolute legend. Hugs and kisses, like and subscribe. Okay, see ya. I'm out.
We accomplished a lot together. It was fun. Take care.